Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage ACCT Chair-elect and Trustee from Midlands Technical College in South Carolina, Peter E. Surser, Sr.
Good afternoon. With the support of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, ACCT convened a groundbreaking summit on the completion this past Tuesday, which engaged nearly 100 leaders. This major educational event was designed to strengthen the awareness and resolve of key stakeholders, as well as decision makers in the field of post-secondary education. This afternoon's session will examine the complex issues associated with the College Completion Challenge. We will first hear from Dr. Mark David Milliron. Mark serves as the Deputy Director for Post-Secondary Improvement at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, leading efforts to increase the student success in the U.S. post-secondary education sector. He is an award-winning leader, author, speaker, and consultant. As former president and CEO of the League for Innovation in the Community College, Mark has a proven lifelong commitment to the community college mission. While teaching in Arizona State, Mark received the International Communication Association's Teaching Excellence Award. More recently, he was recognized by the University of Texas at Austin as a distinguished graduate for his service to the education field. And in the year 2000, he was the American Association of Community Colleges, AACC, presented Dr. Milliron with its National Leadership Award. It was done for his outstanding accomplishments, contributions, and leadership. Mark will lead an interactive discussion among two community college trustees and a president and a representative from the National Governors Association focusing on the college completion agenda. You can read more about each of this afternoon's distinguished keynote speakers in your Congress program. Now, please join me in welcoming Dr. Mark Milliron.
Thanks, the intro, Pete. So we're going to try to catalyze a conversation on college completion. It seems that college completion is the phrase of the day. The conversation we had at the front half of the Congress was really about engaging a deeper dialogue about what this means for trustees and the role that trustees play in really starting a deeper conversation about college completion and student success more broadly. To help frame the conversation just a little, I want to do a couple things before we bring our guests out and dive into this. And then to do it, I need your active participation. So I'll need you to put whatever you're holding down, because you'll need both your hands for this. So you'll need to clear your hands for 1 second, because I'm trying to get us focused on completion here. I want to engage you in a neuroscience exercise that comes from a guy named Dan Simons. Here's how we're going to work it out. First thing you're going to do is you're going to put your hands up like this. All around. Good. Now what you're going to do is you're going to clap your hands really hard and leave them there. Rub them up and down. Clasp them together. Put them in your lap or on the table. Look down at your hands as they're clasped. How many of you, by a show of hands, raise your hands please, if your right thumb is on top? Raise your hand if your right thumb is on top. Look around, folks. Look at the room. Now, raise your hand if your left thumb is on top. Look around at the room, folks. Okay, when the neuroscientists were doing this, they were studying something called autonomic functioning. Autonomic functioning is when our brain goes on autopilot. Our brain loves to get things into patterns and rhythms and neurosynaptic pathways that we are comfortable with. We have clear autonomic functions that we have no control over, like if you sneeze, you'll close your eyes. And then we have ones that your brain patterns over time. Little things like, and your brain ends up going on autopilot. And you know how this feels, because have you ever arrived at work after a 30-minute drive and you don't remember a thing about the drive you just took? Okay, that's your brain going on autopilot. My favorite is you just got out of the shower, you were just in there naked, but you have no idea if you washed your hair or not, right? because your brain likes to go on autopilot. Now, when the neuroscientists were studying this, they like to study the correlates. What does that autonomic function in terms of how you've patterned your behavior, what does it relate to? And they've even done interesting things like the positions that you sleep in most often are actually correlated back to how you were positioned in the womb. Some of their research shows, which is kind of interesting. But when they were doing this one, which is an autonomic function, core autonomic function, you do it the same way every time, what do you think they thought it would be correlated to? Hand dominance, whether you were right-handed or left-handed. They did the research, and you just did the research. You saw the data. Is it related to hand dominance? No. In fact, there's no correlation to hand dominance at all, which kind of freaked them out. So they decided to do a little bit deeper analysis, and what do you think they thought next? What do you think they thought it was related to next? Yeah, they got trendy, right brain, left brain. They thought for sure that was it. No correlation whatsoever between right brain, left brain. So now they got interested. They did a deeper, what's called cluster analytics. They took all the common variables they could find about the right thumbers and clustered them together, and the common variables about the left thumbers, behavioral personality profiles, and all kinds of behavioral characteristics. And after a great bit of research, they obviously had some time on their hands, they have named the right thumbers. They have a real technical term for your name, but they have a great name for the right thumbers. They call you the sexy people. Okay? So you're technical term. Now, I saw some of you switching thumbs. No, you can't. It's not an either or. And, okay. They have also done the same work with the left thumbers, behavioral cluster analytics, and they have named your group as well. They call the left thumbers the sneaky people. They're the sneaky people. Now, in a group this size, I've done this all over the world and it's pretty consistent. In a group this size, we're going to get between about 13 and 25 people who fit neither of those categories. They're people who put their thumbs neither right nor left on top. They put their thumbs side by side. How many of you out there, raise your hand if you put your thumbs side by side. Look around, folks. Okay, folks, these are the people to watch. Okay? The researchers say these are the ones who are sneaky about being sexy. I want you to know. Okay. Now, let's go to the meat of the exercise, because there is purpose to this. Go ahead and put your hands back up the way you always put them. Okay. We're going to clap them together again. Put them together like this. Now hold them up in front of your face. And what you're going to do is you're going to butterfly them out like this. Got it? Now, slowly put them back the other way, with the other thumb on top interlaced with the other set of fingers on top, the opposite from how you normally do it. Feel it and put it down. How does it feel? Wrong. Somebody said sexy over here. I got that. Okay, I want you to get this feeling for a second. And why I want you to get this feeling is because our challenge is not necessarily dealing with people who are really kind of resistant to change or who are off the reservation because they're so for something. Our challenge in engaging this deeper conversation on completion is that we have people who've dedicated 10, 20, 30, 40 years of their life to the thing that we call community college education. They know the way it's supposed to work. We've had some dominant themes in our work, and the dominant theme in our work, especially for the last 30, 40 years, and especially maybe even 50, has been around access. We have been laser focused on access and enrollment. It has been the dominant conversation. It's how we structured our policies, our procedures, and our practices. We have been deeply committed to opening the doors of higher education to as many populations as we possibly can. And by the way, we've done an amazing job. The challenge is we have not done equally as good with a success agenda in terms of getting people across the stage with some kind of credential, some kind of degree. And why that's a problem today, and why the Bill and Melinda Gates in particular Foundation is really interested in this topic, is if you look at opportunity in this country today, talking about 2010, the pathway to possibility is different than it was 30 to 40 years ago. The pathway to possibility, especially out of poverty, we care deeply about low-income students in particular, and what our data shows, this is the hardest point, intergenerational poverty has never been higher. The intergenerational transmission of poverty has never been higher than it is today, meaning you've never been more likely to die poor if you were born poor than right now. Is that a problem? Yeah. Do you know what the single biggest disruptor of that cycle of poverty is today? Yeah, it's not just education, it's a post-secondary credential with some kind of labor market value. Certificate, diploma, degree, and the kind of work that you all do. The reason the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is deeply interested in doubling the numbers of low-income young adults that get these kind of credentials, it's a game changer. It completely changes the pathway of possibility for their lives. And especially that 16 to 26-year-old cohort, it not only changes it for them, it changes it for their kids, for their relatives, for their parents sometimes. It's this kind of multiplier effect. And why we're so focused on this conversation around completion is because we know you share this passion. You're about this idea of giving people a pathway to possibilities. And if we really care about that today, then we need to embrace a broader agenda. And that broader agenda is about access, it's about quality, and it's about completion. It's about getting more students not only to our college, but through our college in really successful ways. The challenge is right now we're not doing so well with that. Nationally, only about half of students that start college in this country finish, and it goes down to about 9% if you're talking about first-generation low-income students. We are on target right now to have the first generation that will follow us to be less educated than the one that came before, which is a big problem. So the challenge now is for us to really begin to have some harder conversations about the fact that these students, if they're going to have a pathway to possibility, they need to take education seriously, and we need to help them not just get to college, but to get through college. So what we want to do is to dive into that conversation in a deeper way and think about what that means from the presidential level, from the trustee level, and even getting down to how we can work with our faculty and staff. We're going to have 4 people who are going to join us today in this conversation to dive a bit deeper into this. So please help me in welcoming to the stage our folks. We're going to bring up first Karen Stout from Montgomery County Community College in Pennsylvania. Let's give her a warm welcome. We're also going to bring up Larry Porter from Sinclair Community College in Ohio. Let's welcome Larry. Okay. We also have Thomas Malone, trustee from Seattle Community College in Washington. Come on up. Okay. And we have Travis Rendell from National Governors Association. Travis, come on out. So what we're going to do is we're going to unpack this conversation a bit, because if we're going to really begin to take completion seriously, we need to be willing to jump into what some people would call courageous conversations. Because when you really begin to unpack our data, sometimes it's hard to really get our arms around the fact that students take longer than 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and understanding the complex their journeys they go through to come through our institutions is an important part of your role in understanding who your students are and what's going to help them be successful. And I want to begin with that, Karen, because I know you feel passionately about this idea of being able to engage these kind of courageous conversations. And what would you say is kind of the most important thing trustees can do in terms of helping you begin these courageous conversations?
Well, I know these courageous conversations are going on in many boardrooms across the country. I would say the number one thing from a president's perspective is that the president has to feel willing to engage, and the president has to understand their own data and their own challenges in order to articulate those to the trustees. So that first step of the president being willing to have that kind of courageous conversation slowly, I think, emerges when there's this trust built with the trustees and this sense